Hello, my name is Friar John with the 5G Network for Good Discernment. We're talking about a vocation, and in the words of Henry Nouwen, the great 20th century spiritual writer, he says, vocation is where your deepest desires and your deepest longing intersect with God's deepest desire and deepest longing for you. But there's times when fears stand in the way of your vocation to be a single person or married person or religious person or ordained person as a priest or deacon. One of those fears that stands in the way to your vocation could be called Cinderella. For Cinderella was in a fairy tale and she waited for her Prince Charming to save the day. There are times in our vocation that we waste time waiting for that perfect one to come along, or maybe it's that perfect community or that perfect spouse. But in real time, not virtual reality, but in the grounded real time, we can look to Jesus to help us to overcome this Cinderella complex. And that Jesus' reality of who he was comes to encounter us, to save us, to be our friend, and to invite us to follow him, to be his follower, and to follow this great vocation. Our second fear is meandering maybe, or M&M. And M&M loves those Facebook invitations where you have the option to RSVP yes or no or maybe. M&M would have it so that you don't choose one side or the other, but you keep walking on the fence. You don't choose yes or no, you stick with maybe. The scriptures would advise against maybe. In fact, Matthew chapter 5 verse 37 says, let your yes mean yes and your no mean no. In the world of maybe, we're stuck in this discernment to Our Lady of perpetual discernment. Jesus would have us respond yes daily to the needs around us so that we can do things for the good of the other, not just for ourselves. And in that way, we're living out our vocation. Our third fear is Discourage Delilah, when fears rule our lives and we have a fear of weakness that prevents us from moving forward. We have this interior voice that says, oh, I'm too shy, or I'm too overbearing. Oh, I'm too strong, or I'm too inadequate. I'm too whatever. Jesus would say, no, you're just right where you are. Our call is one to persevere, not to be perfect. In fact, St. Paul says it quite well in 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 10, where he says, it is when I am weak, then I am strong. We are called to move above our weakness, to move above our fears, and walking closer to our vocation. Our fourth fear is testing Teddy. When testing Teddy loves to put God to the test and doesn't really trust God to come through in the end, but will present these impossible tests like the next person that texts me on my phone is going to be an affirmation to the married life or the religious life. No, Eddie, I can't talk to you. You're a single person. When we do this sign searching, we're really saying we don't trust God to come through. That part of our response is to use this free choice, to use this volition that God gave us as a gift to freely seek him and freely choose him. That God's not going to be a tyrant that's going to force his will upon us, but we are called with this beautiful gift that he'll never take away, to freely choose him with all our heart. One great example that did this so well was Pope John Paul the Great, that during his papacy had the motto totus tuus, totally yours. Just as the Blessed Virgin Mary gave fully herself to God, so Pope John Paul II gave himself completely to the service of the church in his vocation. Our fifth fear is the doormat. This is the people pleaser that is more about pleasing friends and family, bending to peer pressure and social convention rather than doing the very thing the Lord's calling them to do. One cure for this fear, to really look hard within where the Lord might be drawing you is to have a relationship with a spiritual director that can help authenticate our desires, to try them, to encourage one way or another, but not force you in any way. In this way, we come closer to our vocational call. I've been sharing with you the 5 fears that keep us from our vocation, whether it be Cinderella or M&M or Discourage Delilah or Testing Teddy or Doormat. The Lord would have us walk away from the darkness of our fears into His own glorious light, so that in that light we find our vocation. My name is Friar John. Peace and all good things.